She poured hot soup on a black waitress, unaware she was the Korean Mafia boss's ex. The bowl shattered before the pain arrived. Ceramic hit tile with a sharp crack, followed by a hiss, like breath escaping something alive. A heartbeat later, scalding heat spread across Ariel's chest and shoulder, soaking through fabric, searing skin, stealing the air from her lungs. She gasped. The restaurant froze. Forks hovered midair. Conversations collapsed into silence. Steam curled upward from her uniform, carrying the smell of broth, garlic, oil, and humiliation. "Oh my God," a woman said lightly, her voice sharp with amusement rather than concern. "Are you blind?" Ariel's hands trembled at her sides. Her mind scrambled to catch up with her body. Pain roared, bright and overwhelming, but training kicked in before dignity could. I'm so sorry," Ariel said, bowing her head instinctively. "I didn't see." The woman laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not startled laughter. This was deliberate. Enjoyed. "You people are always so clumsy," she said, flicking her wrist as if brushing dirt away. "Do you have any idea what this dress cost?" Ariel swallowed. The burn throbbed now, angry and deep. Her skin felt tight, stretched, already swelling beneath the fabric. "I'll clean it up immediately," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. She bent down, ignoring the way the soaked uniform screamed against her skin. "Careful," the woman sneered. "Wouldn't want you bleeding all over the floor. Disgusting." Something shifted in the room then, a discomfort that crept through the air. Someone nearby muttered, "That's enough," under their breath, but no one stepped forward. They never did. Ariel gathered the broken pieces, with shaking hands, eyes fixed on the floor. She had learned long ago that eye contact invited cruelty. Silence, at least, ended it faster. But as she stood, she felt it. A gaze. She glanced up despite herself. At the corner table, partially hidden by shadow, sat a man who hadn't laughed, hadn't spoken. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, dark, assessing, unsettlingly familiar. He watched her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. For a split second, their eyes met. Her breath caught. No, it couldn't be. She looked away instantly, heart hammering. She finished cleaning, murmured apologies she didn't mean, and retreated toward the kitchen, her pulse roaring in her ears. She didn't look back again. The staff bathroom was barely big enough to turn around in. Ariel locked the door, leaned against it, and slid down slowly until she was sitting on the cold tile floor. Only then did the tears come. Hot, silent, furious. She pressed a paper towel under the tap, turning the water as cold as it would go. When she dabbed it against her skin, she hissed, biting down on her lip to keep from crying out. The mirror above the sink was cracked, splitting her reflection in two. On one side, she saw the woman she'd become. Tired eyes, pulled back curls, a uniform that never quite fit. On the other, she saw echoes of someone else. Someone softer. Someone who believed love could be safe. "You're fine," she whispered. "You're fine." The words felt hollow. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She froze. Unknown number. Probably spam. Everything was spam these days. Calls, apologies, promises. She ignored it. When she stepped back onto the floor to finish her shift, she kept her head down. She moved carefully. She avoided the corner table. Still, she felt the weight of that gaze until the very end. The walk home was longer than usual. The city breathed around her, cars hissing past on wet pavement, neon signs buzzing faintly overhead, the smell of rain and exhaust thick in the air. Ariel hugged her coat tighter, every step reminding her of the burn beneath her clothes. 3 years ago, she hadn't lived like this. 3 years ago, she'd stood on a balcony overlooking Seoul, the city spread out beneath her like a living thing. "You're quiet," he'd said behind her. She'd smiled without turning. "I like listening." Kang Joon-ho had always spoken like every word mattered. Calm, measured, dangerous in its restraint. "Most people like being heard," he'd said. "Most people talk too much." That had earned her one of his rare laughs, soft, surprised. The sound had settled into her bones, warm and intoxicating. She hadn't known then that loving him would cost her everything. Only that when he looked at her, really looked, she felt seen in a way that terrified her. Her phone buzzed again. She stopped walking. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello. Silence. Then, I saw what happened. Her breath hitched. The voice was low, calm, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. I wanted to make sure you're all right. She closed her eyes. No, she said quietly. You don't get to ask that. Ariel, her name in his mouth, felt like reopening a wound she'd stitched closed with shaking hands. Don't, she warned. I never wanted you hurt. She laughed once, sharp and bitter. Funny, because I've been bleeding ever since I met you. The street light above her flickered. Where are you? He asked. That's none of your business. You're shaking. She hated that he could still read her so easily. Why are you calling me Junho? A pause. Longer this time. Because tonight wasn't an accident, he said. And the woman who did that to you doesn't forgive easily. Her stomach twisted. What are you saying? I'm saying you're not safe. She leaned against a brick wall, heart pounding. I left. I disappeared. I did everything you wanted. I never wanted you gone, he said softly. I wanted you alive. Silence stretched between them. Come with me, he said. Just for tonight. No. There are things you don't know. I know enough. If I wanted to hurt you, he said quietly, I wouldn't have waited 3 years. Her throat tightened. Where? She asked. I'll send a car. As the call ended, Ariel stood under the flickering streetlight, unaware that behind the restaurant she'd left, 2 men were already asking questions, and that this time, walking away wouldn't be enough. The car arrived without headlights. It slid to the curb like a shadow given form, black paint swallowing the dim streetlight. The engine barely made a sound. Ariel stared at it for a long moment, her heart beating, so loudly she was sure the driver could hear it. The rear door opened. A man stepped out first, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat that looked more like armor than clothing. His eyes swept the street with quick efficiency before settling on her. Ariel, he said, dipping his head slightly. Respectful. Controlled. She hesitated. 3 years of survival screamed at her to refuse, to turn back, to keep choosing the small, hard life she'd built rather than step again into a world that had once swallowed her whole. But another instinct, the one that had kept her alive long before waitressing ever had, recognized danger when it crept close. She got into the car. The door shut with a muted thud, sealing her inside. The city noise dimmed instantly, replaced by a hush so complete it felt unreal. Leather seats, subtle lighting, the faint scent of cedar, and something unmistakably familiar. She didn't look to her right at first. You didn't have to come, Junho said quietly. She turned then. He sat beside her, posture relaxed, one arm resting against the door. Time had sharpened him. His face was leaner, more controlled, his expression carved from restraint. He wore a simple dark coat, no jewelry, no visible excess, but power clung to him the way he clung to flame. I know, she replied, but I don't like being hunted. His gaze dropped to her shoulder, where the burn throbbed beneath her coat. You're injured. I've had worse. That doesn't make it acceptable. The car pulled away smoothly. Ariel folded her hands together to stop them from shaking. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. She let out a short, humorless laugh. That word always meant something different to you. He didn't argue. I know. They drove in silence as the city changed around them. Crowded streets thinned. Neon signs gave way to darkness, trees, iron gates. Cameras followed the car's approach. The gate opened without pause. Her chest tightened. The house rose from the darkness like a quiet monument, modern, angular, all glass and steel softened by warm light. It wasn't flashy. It was deliberate, controlled, just like him. This is where you live? She asked. I sleep here, he replied. That told her everything. Inside, the house was silent. No staff, no music, just space, clean lines. A central courtyard with a single tree rising from stone, leaves rustling softly in the night air. She stopped just inside the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. "You can take the guest room," Junho said. "Bathroom attached. Clothes will be there if you need them." "And then?" she asked. "And then you leave," he said without hesitation. She studied his face, searching for manipulation, for conditions. She found only exhaustion, deep, carefully hidden, real. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why after all this time?" "Because tonight wasn't random," he said. "The woman who did that to you is connected to people who don't tolerate embarrassment." A chill slid down her spine. "So I'm collateral damage again." His jaw tightened. "You were never collateral." "I lost everything loving you," she said. Silence stretched. "You left me," he said. "I left so I wouldn't disappear," she shot back. "So I wouldn't wake up every day wondering which part of myself I'd lose next." "If you'd stayed," he said quietly, "you would be dead." The words landed hard. She stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said carefully, "that the enemies I was making back then would have used you to get to me, and I wouldn't have been able to stop them. So instead you let me walk away with nothing. I let you live." Her voice broke. Barely. The tension between them felt fragile, like glass under pressure. "You should rest," he said finally. "We'll talk in the morning." She hesitated, then nodded. The guest room was warm, understated, untouched. Ariel sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. After a moment, there was a soft knock. A woman entered, older, calm, kind-eyed. "I'm Sun He," she said gently. "Let me see your burns." Ariel stiffened, then slowly nodded. Sun He worked quietly, efficient but gentle. "You're lucky," she murmured. "Another few seconds, and this would have been worse." Ariel swallowed. He always surrounds himself with people who fix things. Sun He paused, then smiled sadly. He surrounds himself with people who protect what he cares about. That night, Ariel lay awake listening to the unfamiliar silence. Down the hall, Junho stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear. "She's here," he said coldly. "No, you will not touch her." A pause. "If anyone goes near her," he continued, voice dropping, "I will end this permanently." He ended the call and stared into the darkness, jaw clenched. For the first time in 3 years, Ariel slept under his roof. And for the first time in 3 years, the danger she'd run from had finally found her. Ariel woke just before dawn. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was too high, too clean. The air smelled faintly of wood polish and rain drifting in through an open window. Silence pressed in from all sides, deep, deliberate, unnatural. Then memory returned in fragments. The soup, the laughter, the phone call, the car without headlights. Him. She sat up slowly, the movement pulling a sharp breath from her throat as her burns protested. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, pale and cool, tracing soft lines across the bedspread. Everything here felt untouched, protected, like a place pain wasn't supposed to reach. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood, steadying herself against the dresser. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror, still tired, still guarded, but something else lingered in her eyes now. Awareness. She wasn't invisible here. When she stepped into the hallway, voices drifted toward her from the kitchen. "Too close," a man was saying. "You should have told me sooner." "I told you as soon as I confirmed it," Junho replied, calm but edged with steel. "They were testing boundaries." "And you brought her here?" "Yes." A pause. "That makes her a target." Another pause, longer. She already was. Ariel backed away quietly, her chest tight. She didn't want to hear more. Knowledge had always come at a cost in his world. She turned and nearly collided with a young boy rounding the corner. "Oh," he exclaimed wide-eyed. They both froze. He couldn't have been more than 10 or 11, dark hair falling into curious eyes. He stared at her like she was a question he hadn't decided how to ask yet. "I'm sorry," Ariel said automatically. The boy grinned. "You must be the lady." "The lady?" He nodded enthusiastically. "The one Uncle Junho brought home." Her heart stuttered. "Uncle!" He glanced past her, lowering his voice conspiratorially. He doesn't bring people home. Something warm and unexpected flickered in her chest. Before she could respond, Jun-ho appeared at the end of the hall. He stopped short when he saw her. "You're awake," he said. The boy looked between them. "She's nice." Jun-ho's mouth twitched despite himself. "Min-jae," he said. "Go finish breakfast." Min-jae saluted dramatically and disappeared down the hall. Ariel watched him go, something soft settling into her ribs. "You didn't tell me you had a nephew." "I didn't think you'd be staying long enough to meet him," Jun-ho replied. That stung more than she expected. Over breakfast, conversation was sparse but different. Min-jae chatted easily, asking Ariel about her favorite food, whether she liked dogs, if she knew how to play chess. Jun-ho listened more than he spoke, his gaze flicking to Ariel in quiet observation. It felt dangerously close to normal. Afterward, Sunhee insisted on checking Ariel's burns again. "You heal fast," she said approvingly. "But stress slows the body." Ariel smiled faintly. "Then I'm in trouble." Jun-ho watched from the doorway. "You don't have to stay," he said. "I can arrange protection elsewhere." "And send me back to my life," she asked, "where people can throw boiling soup at me and walk away laughing." His jaw tightened. "That won't happen again." She met his eyes. "You can't promise that." "No," he agreed, "but I can promise consequences." The word lingered between them. Later that afternoon, Ariel insisted on going outside. She wandered the courtyard slowly, fingers brushing the bark of the solitary tree. It was strong, rooted, alive despite the stones surrounding it. "I planted that," Jun-ho said from behind her. She turned. "Why?" "Because it didn't belong here," he replied, "and I wanted to see if it could survive anyway." She studied him. "Did it?" He nodded. "Barely. At first." They stood in silence, the space between them charged but gentle. "I never stopped thinking about you," she said suddenly. He stiffened. "I told myself I had," she continued. "I built a whole life around forgetting. But sometimes I'd hear a voice that sounded like yours and my chest would ache." He swallowed. "I read every report," he admitted. "Every scrap of information. I knew where you worked, where you lived. I just stayed away." "Why?" "Because watching from a distance was the only way I could be sure you were safe." Her eyes burned. "You don't get to decide that alone." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm listening now." The moment shattered with the sound of breaking glass. A crash echoed from the front of the house. Alarm screamed to life. Footsteps thundered. Jun-ho moved instantly, grabbing Ariel's arm and pulling her behind him. Inside. Now. Men poured through the breached entrance, shouting. Min-jae screamed somewhere down the hall. "Min-jae!" Ariel shouted, panic flooding her. "I've got him," Jun-ho snapped. "Stay behind me." But Ariel didn't freeze. She ran. She found Min-jae cowering behind a table, eyes wide with terror. Without thinking, she knelt, wrapping her arms around him. "It's okay," she whispered. "I've got you." A man burst into the room. Before he could react, Jun-ho was there, swift, precise, terrifying. The threat ended as quickly as it began. Silence fell again, broken only by Min-jae's shaky breathing. That night, Ariel sat beside Jun-ho in the dim living room, Min-jae asleep upstairs. "You didn't hesitate," Jun-ho said quietly. "You ran toward danger." "So did you," she replied. He looked at her then, not as someone he needed to protect, but as someone who stood with him. "I won't leave," she said softly. "Not yet." Something in his expression broke. "Then I won't pretend I don't want you here," he said. Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. Outside, unseen, someone watched the house, reporting back that the woman hadn't run, that she'd stayed. And that changed everything. Night fell heavier than the last. Ariel felt it before anyone said a word. The tightening of the house. The way voices dropped. The way footsteps doubled. The calm that followed the earlier breach wasn't peace. It was preparation. She stood at the window, watching the courtyard tree sway under a thin wind. Somewhere beyond the walls, danger gathered itself. Jun-ho joined her quietly. "They won't try again tonight," he said. "Not openly." "Tomorrow then," she replied. He nodded. Tomorrow. They turned to face each other. The space between them felt smaller now, charged with the knowledge that time had become a finite thing. You should leave, he said. I won't, she answered. This isn't pride, he warned. It's survival. She lifted her chin. So is choosing where I stand. He studied her, really studied her, and something shifted. Not fear, not doubt, acceptance. All right, he said. Then we do this together. Morning came sharp and clear. Sunny brewed tea with steady hands. Min Jae lingered close to Ariel, his small fingers brushing her sleeve, as if anchoring himself to her presence. You're brave, he told her solemnly. She smiled. So are you. He considered that, then nodded as if he'd accepted a truth. By noon, the call came. Jun-ho listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When he ended the call, he looked at Ariel. They want to talk, he said. Neutral ground. Neutral doesn't exist, she replied. No, he agreed. But they want witnesses. Her pulse quickened. Then they want a spectacle. Yes. She inhaled slowly. Then let them see us. The restaurant was closed to the public when they arrived. Ariel recognized it instantly. The polished wood, the soft lighting, the corner table where everything had begun. The woman was already there, seated like a queen, flanked by men who wore their violence with quiet confidence. Her eyes flicked to Ariel, then narrowed. You, she said, lips curling. I wondered when you'd crawl back. Ariel stepped forward before Jun-ho could stop her. I didn't crawl, she said evenly. I walked. The woman laughed. Bold. For a waitress. I'm not here as staff, Ariel replied. I'm here as a person you tried to humiliate. And, the woman said, you want an apology? I want you to understand something, Ariel continued. You thought I was disposable. You were wrong. Jun-ho spoke then, his voice calm, lethal. What happened to her ends today? The woman's smile faltered, just slightly. You always did have a taste for liabilities. Jun-ho didn't look away. And you always mistook cruelty for power. The room held its breath. You embarrassed me. The woman snapped at Ariel. Do you know what that costs in my world? Ariel's hands trembled, but she didn't retreat. I know what it costs to stay silent, she said. I paid that price for years. The woman rose. Careful. No, Ariel said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. You be careful, because if you touch me again, it won't be hidden. It won't be quiet, and everyone will know who you are. The woman stared at her, really stared. Then she laughed again, but it sounded forced. This ends, Jun-ho said. You walk away, or you lose more than face. The men behind the woman shifted. Calculations were made. Lines redrawn. Finally, she waved a dismissive hand. Fine. Take her. She's not worth the trouble. Ariel felt the release, like a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Outside, the city hummed as if nothing had happened. Jun-ho turned to Ariel. You didn't have to do that. Yes, she said softly. I did. He searched her face. You're not afraid. I am, she admitted. But I'm not powerless. Something in his eyes warmed. I forgot how strong you are. You never really saw me weak, she replied. You just saw me leaving. They stood there, the past and present finally aligned. I love you, he said quietly. Not as a plea, not as a promise, as a truth. Her chest tightened. I never stopped. He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. I won't cage you, he said. I won't decide for you. Stay or go. But choose me only if it's your choice. She squeezed his hand. I choose us, she said. On my terms. A smile touched his mouth, soft, rare, real. Weeks later, Ariel stood beneath the courtyard tree, sunlight filtering through leaves that had grown stronger, fuller. Min Jae ran circles around the stone path. Sunny hummed inside. Jun-ho approached, slipping an arm around Ariel's waist, not possessive. Present. You could still leave, he said. I know, she replied. That's why I'm staying. She leaned into him, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath, the quiet promise of a life rebuilt not on fear, but on choice. The tree rustled above them, rooted alive. And for the first time, Ariel believed she was too. Thank you for listening to She Poured Hot Soup on a Black Waitress, unaware she was the Korean Mafia boss's ex. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world. Until next time, Red Heart.